Trevor Jones, bringing you the national and international news. The situation across the nation is deteriorating rapidly. Large sections of the country are with no running water. There are shortages of food and fuel, and most people have no electrical power. Many stores are closed, and we have reports from several large cities of armed gangs roaming the streets looking for water, food, fuel, and anything else of value. There have been riots in many of the major cities across the world. This crisis appears to have created a total breakdown of social order across the globe.
How did all of this happen? How did we get to the point of total collapse of order across all of the major nations on this planet? Let me walk you through our sad story and unraveling of life as we knew it. My name is Jeff, and I live in a beautiful and comfortable home with my wife Diane. Things seem to be so good. We truly lived a good life. We had a beautiful backyard. We both had good jobs. We bought late model cars, ate out regularly, traveled regularly, and took tropical vacations almost every year. This was a time of great abundance and happiness, and we were so caught up with this life that we were blissfully unaware of the pressures that were building in the U.S. and world economies. Some of the warning signs we missed of the underlying rot in our system included the loss of the nation's manufacturing sector to offshoring, the stock market crash, the massive Wall Street bailouts, the continued growth of the too-big-to-fail banks, the casino gambling environment that replaced true investment in the nation, the doctoring of unemployment numbers by the government, the growth of payday lenders, the increasing numbers of people using food pantries to feed their families, the growing numbers of stores on the edge of almost giving away their inventories, the increasing number of vacant commercial properties, and the millions of people who were losing their homes to foreclosure while the bankers paid themselves huge bonuses. The obvious corruption of our politicians by corporate campaign spending, the decline of our inner cities, the bleeding of our economy through endless wars, the consistent trade deficits brought on by our profligate use of imported oil, the growth of our prison population until we had more prisoners than any other nation on the planet, the rapid growth of the homeless. During this time, we had the most massive redistribution of wealth from the middle classes to the rich. Our public schools were deteriorating, while the wealthy lived in their gated communities and sent their children to elite private schools. How could I have missed so many warning signs? These symptoms were there in plain sight for all to see, yet collectively we all continued living an illusion that the current system was sustainable and that our government had solved economic problems and that things would get better. Should we be surprised that our friends and neighbors lost their jobs while we actively seek to buy the cheapest foreign-made products rather than those made in the USA? Well, reality finally hit home. While driving home from work, I stopped to get gas for the car. It seemed like the line was moving unusually slowly. It turns out that the gas station was no longer accepting credit cards and would only sell gas for cash. I tried another station, but it was not selling any gas. As I continued on my way home, I noticed that even another gas station was closed. When I got home, a telephone call came in from my sister and told my wife Diane to look on the news. The channels were all carrying only one story on how the dollar was collapsing on the world markets and all financial transactions had come to a standstill. Apparently, a sovereign debt crisis caused by several countries created the panic which had spread to the United States. And then to compound this problem, thousands of billions in derivatives held by the four largest banks in the U.S. failed because there was simply too much money for any counterparty to pay out. The price of gold was increasing steadily. How could I have ever believed that our nation could pay off $12,000 billion in debt? This amount of money simply boggles my mind now. A neighbor visits us and warns us that a run is taking place at the supermarket. When we arrive at the store, it is totally mobbed, and the store will not accept credit cards and will only accept cash. The shelves in the store are emptying quickly. The news tells us that some banks are closed. Others have withdrawal limits of $200. There are increasing food and fuel shortages. Many stores have now closed, and those that are open are out of canned goods, batteries, fuel, and other staples. The stock market has been in free fall for 3 full days, and it was closed early today to provide some breathing room. Gun stores are reporting huge sales and are almost out of ammunition and firearms. Some gun stores are no longer accepting cash and will only accept gold or silver for payment. I am starting to get really worried that things are unraveling far too quickly. The news was now telling us about panic in several cities in the US, Asia, and Europe. The stock market continues to drop and is closed again today after only 1 hour of trading. The president is leaving the country with his entire economic team and the chairman of the Federal Reserve to go to China for an economic summit. I find it interesting that the influence of China has grown because of their vast currency reserves, and that they are hosting the summit and not the U.S. The government has declared a bank holiday and all banks are now closed. No one can get to their money or safe deposit boxes. We are starting to run short of food. My brother has temporarily moved in with us and brought some food with him. My wife's mother has also moved in with us. The news tells us that the food distribution network is barely functioning and that many pension funds have failed. Most stores are now closed, and it looks like no one is going to work. I was on the commuter rail line, and these stations that are normally filled with people going to work to the city were eerily empty, and it leaves me feeling very unsettled. There are fewer and fewer cars on the road now, because it seems like most gas stations are closed and fuel is very difficult.
Can you imagine paying more than $11 for 1 ear of corn, $23 for a loaf of bread, $45 for orange juice, and $15.50 for a chocolate bar? Well, our next guest says we will be seeing prices like this in the very near future. And brace yourself, because of food inflation, this holiday season will be the worst in American history. Gerard Adams is president of the National Inflation Association. Gerard, welcome to you. So we all know the macro picture with the Fed and quantitative easing, flooding dollars into the system, more dollars equal higher inflation. But you are saying food inflation will take over next year as our biggest crisis, more so than the mortgage mess, unemployment. Why is that, and why aren't more people as concerned as you are?
I think people do need to get educated. I think that food inflation should be their #1 concern right now. Commodities, agricultural commodities have really taken off more than anything else right in the past couple months. And I think that come next year, it's going to get much worse. But
so far, corporations have not passed on those higher food prices, in a large part, to the consumer. But is there going to be a floodgate? What's the catalyst going to be that automatically comes upon our shoulders as consumers and food buyers?
Well, I think it's starting to happen right now. Dean Foods actually just came out recently announcing that their net income has dropped by 51% because of the rising cost of their butterfat, which they use for ice cream and milk. And sooner or later, these companies are going to have to take on these costs.
But you're talking about searing inflation here, $11.43 for 1 ear of corn. That's a huge differentiation for what we're paying right now. So there's got to be something major that a lot of economists are missing. We talk about core inflation, right? The Federal Reserve says core inflation is pretty limited, but when you put in the volatile food and energy component, then it gets scary. But, I mean, you're talking about prices going up for the holiday season. That could cause a run on the grocery store, so let's be really careful here. So what's the difference? What's the disconnect?
I think it's really going to get bad for the holiday season, but I think it's going to get even worse coming into next year. The fact of the matter is that the last time we had an inflationary crisis was in the 1970s, and we just calculated the fact that taking the prices that it went to in the 1970s and compared it to what the real rate of inflation is around today's dollars, and that's where we got a lot of our projections. And
$23 for a 24-ounce loaf of wheat bread. It's astronomical. $77 for an 11-ounce container of Folgers coffee. Give me a snapshot. Give me a better understanding of how you do your research.
Well, basically, I think actually those prices can happen within the next decade, but they can even happen even sooner, in my opinion. If what we did was, like I told you, we just took the prices the last time we had an inflationary crisis, which was in the 1970s. I feel that the economic status right now is much worse than it was in the 70s. So I took the prices of those commodities when they hit their highs in the 70s, and I just calculated what those prices would be in today's dollars based on the real rate of inflation.
And then how does that compare to, because wage growth is certainly not going to keep up with this rate of food inflation you're talking about. What's the ratio there? What's the difference there?
I think that for every 1% in wage growth, there'll be 4% food inflation. So I think people really need to start waking up.
Is there anything that could thwart this trend that you're seeing? We're looking at gold prices down 30 some odd bucks the ounce today. China expected to raise interest rates. Any macro themes that could, again, cause you to limit your forecast here?
Well, I think it's a buying opportunity right now, gold and silver, first of all. And I think that the Federal Reserve needs to stop printing money. You know, we need to seriously consider raising interest rates immediately because I think that we're on the verge of seeing hyperinflation.
All right, Gerard Adams, president of the National Inflation Association, your specialty. Many thanks.
Thank you for having me.
A lot of people hope you're incorrect, but an interesting theory nonetheless. Appreciate you sharing it with us.